Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2. Today I'm going to be showing you guys what I believe to be the best setup in the entire game for consistently being able to one-phase pretty much any boss in the game. So if you're looking to farm Master Templar, do Riven consistently, maybe just absolutely flex on your friends every time that you do Atheon, this is absolutely the setup for you. And also, I'm really hoping that in the Witch Queen, some of these mods actually get opened up and there's more things introduced so that this becomes even more relevant, which would be awesome. And it's certainly just worth knowing about how to absolutely maximize damage, because I haven't really seen people make a video on this before. And I've been using this a ton lately, pretty much every time that I do anything with a boss DPS encounter where I'm on my hunter, so I figured I would just make a video on it. If you guys don't know, I'm pretty new to making Destiny videos. This is only my second video, so if you guys like the video, I would highly appreciate you dropping a like. Helps me get into the Destiny 2 community. Also, I'll be making a ton of videos when the Witch Queen drops, so if you find the videos helpful, feel free to subscribe if you'd like to. One quick thing, I'm interested in testing a lot of builds right before the Witch Queen comes out. I'm particularly looking for a Risk Runner one, actually, and there's just so many different variations in the game, and I've only been playing recently the last few months, so if there's any builds that you guys have found that you really enjoy using, please feel free to leave it down in the comments. I'd love to see some, and if there's a build that you guys want to see a video on, also feel free to comment about that. Alright, so let's just get right into the video. I'm just going to show you guys everything that you need to know so that you can do more boss damage than pretty much anybody in the game. One quick preface, or one thing I want to preface this video with rather, is certainly builds like Bonk Hammer, like Titan Hammer, and the Stasis Behemoth Titan thing are going to do a little bit more boss damage in this. Actually, the Bonk Hammer can like one-shot under the right circumstances. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that this does more damage than that. However, that is extremely inconsistent. Bonk Hammer is really interesting, but if you're trying to like one-phase Atheon or something with like your random friends, it's going to be difficult to replicate that, and it's not going to be super consistent. This build, you pretty much throw it together, and every single boss encounter you will do more damage than other people. There's not very much setup or that you have to do in terms of your playstyle in order to actually do more damage than everybody else. I just wanted to say that real quick because yes, technically there are things that do more boss damage, but it's a little bit harder to replicate those things, and just for the sake of consistency, that is kind of the point of this build. So getting into the build itself, the whole point of this is pretty much to take full advantage of Font of Might. If you haven't watched my previous video, I would highly recommend watching it. Basically, the whole video I'm explaining what Font of Might does, how damage stacking works in this game, and how you can fully take advantage of this to constantly have additional damage, pretty much no matter what content that you're doing, because people don't really know that Font of Might actually stacks on top of every other empowering buff in the game, and it is a 25% damage buff, which stacks multiplicatively on top of other things, which means it's going to give you way more than 25% under the right circumstances. So for example, if somebody pops a bubble and I'm in a damage encounter, the bubble is the highest empowering buff that I can get. So if I'm standing on a bubble and a well, and I have high energy fire, I'm not gaining all of those all at the same time. The only thing that I'm going to benefit from, which is the bubble, because it's a higher multiplier than all those other things. But Font of Might is one of the few things in the game that stacks on top of all of those things. In the video, I also cover a lot of the ways to fully take advantage of this, so I'd highly recommend watching that. But regardless, because of this fact, I was thinking about how could I realistically get an elemental well matching my subclass and actually take advantage of this in a boss damage scenario so that I could have that additional 25% damage, which actually ends up being about 35% when you calculate it multiplicatively on top of all those other buffs. So that I could just consistently do more damage than pretty much everybody else and one phase easier. When you first look at it, it seems a little bit difficult to find a way to set this up because a lot of the well mods require you to actually get a kill, which isn't super realistic for a lot of the boss encounters. For example, melee well maker, you need to kill with a melee. Elemental ordnance, you need to kill with a grenade. Elemental armaments, you need to kill with a weapon that matches your subclass element, etc., etc. There's not very many ways to on-demand, or there's actually kind of only one way to on-demand to spawn a well so that you could take advantage of it in a boss fight. In certain fights, such as maybe Riven or something, if you use Elemental Ordnance, there's the ad right before Riven spawns, you could kill the ad and get the buff, and then you could consistently have it. But for certain boss fights like Master Templar, where you're not really killing any ads, it's going to be way harder to take advantage of this, and that's where Supreme Wellmaker comes in. So this is pretty much the only mod in the game where you can just spawn wells immediately without any setup. Casting your super spawns 3 stasis elemental wells near you. So clearly this is restrictive to stasis, so you have to use a stasis weapon, which coincidentally, Reed's Regret happens to be the best boss DPS weapon in the whole game right now, so that worked perfectly for us. But hopefully in the future, this gets opened up to all supers, and if that happens, this is pretty much almost a must-have for boss DPS at all times, because imagine popping a well and then using Gallahorn or Sleeper, or popping a Nova Bomb and mind using Deathbringer. You know, obviously there's like a million combinations there. So that would be extremely good. The problem with this mod, however, is that if you're on Stasis Titan or Stasis Warlock, you can't pop your super and then get out of your super, because those supers are roaming. If you guys happen to know a way to do that, that would be awesome, because then you could use it on those characters. But my understanding is that, you know, once you pop those supers, you kind of have to use the energy a little bit, and you have to be in the super for a bit. But for Hunter, you just pop your Revenant super, and the damage just goes over time, which is actually really good for boss DPS as well, especially because you're going to play that anyways to give your Warlocks focusing lens. But also, you don't have to sit in an animation for very long. You just spawn those wells immediately, and you can just boom, go right to doing boss DPS. If you guys know of a way to take advantage of this with Warlock or Titan, again, leave it in the comments. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be playing Hunter, which also happens to have an exotic that pairs perfectly with this too, which is awesome. But before we talk about that, we'll talk about how the rest of the mods that we're using with this. So use Supreme Wellmaker paired with Font of Might, so that way you're getting the Font of Might buff. And then if you use a mod called Elemental Time Dilation, I have it on my helmet here, it increases the duration of Font of Might. So by default, Font of Might lasts 11 seconds. With one Elemental Time Dilation, it makes it go up to 14 seconds. And then the more Font of Mights that you have past that point on your gear is going to increase the duration. So one Elemental Time Dilation goes 14, and then if you have two Font of Mights, you'll go to 17, 3 Font of Mights goes to 21, and 4 Font of Mights goes to 30. However, you can't realistically have 4 Font of Mights unless there's gear in the game that's going to exist that allows you to put 2 well mods on a piece of gear, because you have to have the well spawning mod, and then you have to have Font of Might and then Supreme Wellmaker. So that's 3 by default, so you couldn't have 4 of those be Font of Might. Anyways, so this pretty much allows your Font of Might to last the duration of any boss DPS phase in the entire game, which is why I happen to have 3 of them on, just for the purposes of this video. If you're doing, like, you know, Master Templar where the boss has a ton of health, that 21-second duration will help you fully take advantage of the extra damage as long as possible. But if you're doing something like Grasp of Avarice, where the boss doesn't last that long, you can easily swap out Font of Might to, say, Protective Light or something, because you don't need that extra duration for the damage. Obviously, let's talk about weapons, then I'll talk about all the other gear that I'm using. The mods that I'm using on my gear is purely just for doing boss damage and just maximizing what I can do with my Reed's Regret, making it more consistent. If you wanted, you know, more ad clear, there's a lot of mods that you could change. I'll show you guys everything that I have, and then I'll show you guys a demonstration of how much damage this realistically does. So, obviously, we're going to be using Reed's Regret. This is the best gun in the game for boss damage currently, because you can get the mod combo Triple Tap and Firing Line. Firing Line gives 20% precision damage, where Vorpal is only going to give 10% extra damage, so by default this is going to be the highest damage perk that you can get. Paired with Triple Tap, you get not only a ton of extra ammo, so for Master Templar, for example, or a boss that lasts a long period of time, you get a ton extra ammo, so you're just going to shell out more damage over a long period of time. But also, you don't have to reload as much, because this is going to immediately fill your reserve, meaning that you're going to do more damage over time as well, because you don't have to spend as much time reloading. You can also get Ionized Battery to make the magazine go from 5 to 6, which is very, very good with Triple Tap. This is by far going to do way more damage than Sleeper, but what's also really cool about this is that it's a legendary, right? So you pair this with something like Wither Horde, or actually just Wither Horde, so that you can use this and do some damage over time. So pretty much you shoot a Wither Horde shot, and then you go into shooting your Reeds. Wither Horde, one shot of Wither Horde doesn't do that much boss DPS, so I really wouldn't worry about this if you're trying to, like, you know, just do like Atheon or something and you don't really want to use Wither Horde. You don't have to be able to do more damage on everybody. One Wither Horde shot with buffs is going to give you, I think, like 114,000 damage, which is less than one Reed shot, right? So it's not really all that great, but it's nice to have just for extra damage, because you can pop it. You can shoot the Wither Horde right before the damage, right before the boss is actually damageable. So then the rest of the damage over time effect actually works, so you don't have to waste any time while the boss is damageable, where you could be shooting them with your Reed's Regret. Hopefully that makes sense. For the rest of the build, we're using Mask of Backers with this, because anytime that you use your dodge and then you have the light shift buff, you deal extra damage to slowed or frozen enemies. I believe in the spreadsheet it says it's 10%. I tested it myself and it seems to be a little bit more than that. I don't know. I think it's inconsistent because the game is stacking so many buffs simultaneously that a lot of things don't snapshot, a lot of things don't like actually add up properly, and it just gets all over the place, which is why you'll see in certain clips my damage will, you know, sometimes I'll do 180k and other times I'll do 220k. It's a little inconsistent. However, the damage from this is still pretty free, And for the purpose of doing as much boss DPS, this is certainly what you want to use, but you don't have to use this. You could very easily just not have this, and you'll still do way more than everybody else just because of Font of Might and because of a well-rolled reads. But this is still going to beat anybody, even if your reads only has, Vorpal. Even if it doesn't have Vorpal, actually, just getting 25% damage on Font of Might is simply just better than almost anything else that exists in the game. In terms of the other mods that I have, they don't really matter. My stats are kind of just, whatever, all over the place. I have linear fusion rifle loader just so that I can reload a little bit faster. And then on my boots, I have fusion scavenger because this is going to give me reserves and also extra ammo, recuperation for survivability, and then I just have bomber just to throw grenades. Now I want to show you guys an example of what this looks like, and I'll show you guys the math on how much DPS this is. So this is me in a normal Grasp of Avarice run, and this is going to be taking full advantage of every buff in the game. So we're getting Ward of Dawn, which is going to be a 35% extra damage buff, and that's the highest empowering buff that we can get on ourselves. And then we're going to be divinitying the boss with particle deconstruction. Divinity because it's the only buff that stacks with particle deconstruction. And then particle, obviously just to make your reads do more damage. That's pretty simple. So as you can see right here, I'm going to shoot my Wither Horde shot, and then right afterwards I'm going to pop my super. I spawn 3 wells, and then I'm going to light shift to collect them, and then also be in a position to damage the boss here. In this clip, I only have 13 seconds of duration because I wasn't using elemental time dilation properly at this time. I only had one Font of Might on and one time dilation mod on, so I wasn't fully taking advantage of the duration. However, this boss dies pretty quickly, so it only falls off on my last shot. So as you can see, I'm at 112 in the clip. I'm just going to say 113 just to make it sound a little bit better. I'll show you guys the math, but this is by no means a perfect clip. I actually ran out of Weapons of Light because I collected it a little bit too early and I didn't make sure to refresh. Also, my Font of Might didn't last the whole time, and I think I missed one time. But as you can see, I'm doing absolutely crazy damage, 200,000, 190,000 a shot. It's a little bit weird that it's, inconsistent. However, that's pretty much what it is. So we started pretty much shooting our fusion at around 1:13, and then we killed the guy at 1:26 on the clock. It barely ticks over, but we killed him in basically 13 seconds. And then at the end of the clip, let me pull up the screenshot here. All right, here's a screenshot for this. So in 13 seconds, I did 2.5 million damage, which is a 192,000 damage per second. If the boss were to die faster, if my Font of Might were to, last a little bit longer, if I actually properly fully took advantage and timed everything perfectly, you could pretty easily get like 220,000 DPS if my Wither Horde shot was better, etc. But 192,000 damage with damage per second without a perfect setup is extremely good. Just to compare, so my one friend is using Divinity, so his damage isn't very good, obviously. But my friend Vinzapper here, he's using Sleeper with Focusing Lens. So as you can see, I did 500,000 or 400,000 more damage than him. But the thing about Sleeper is that it does more burst DPS than Reed's Regret does. If he were to shoot like 2 more times, he's going to be completely out of ammo, and I'm going to have like 10 or 12 more shots. And I can also use my backwards again to get the extra damage buff from that. So the thing about Reeds is that it not only gives, with this setup, you have more burst DPS than everybody else, but over a longer period of time, nobody can even come close to you. Here's another example just showing you guys the damage. In another run, I was able to get 2.8. He was able to get 1.7 with the same sleeper setup. Just for fun here, I just wanted to show you guys a clip of me using it on Master Mode Templar. I wasn't using elemental time dilation at this time, but I just wanted to show you guys the damage and that it is, I guess, realistic. I mean, it wouldn't, I don't know why it wouldn't be realistic. The only thing is that if you Mask of Bacchus dodge into somebody, you might knock them around like I did there with my friend. But as you can see, the damage is pretty good. Obviously, this is Master Mode, so the damage is going to be a little bit scaled down. So hitting 122 per shot is particularly good here, especially because you can just shoot for an insanely long time. In a few shots, my friends aren't going to be able to shoot Sleeper anymore, and I'm still going to have ammo with my Reed's Regret, especially with triple tap. So it's really good for that reason, but I also, lost all my buffs, so my damage isn't going to be that great over the entire course of this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Here's me doing it on Atheon, and I just wanted to show you guys the damage and that you can use it on any boss fight that you want, because most bosses you just have your super up immediately. So that is pretty much it for the video. If you guys did enjoy, please make sure to drop a like, share it with your friends, let all your hunter friends know that they should be doing this every time that you guys do Atheon, so you don't keep wiping and not one-phasing it. If you liked the video, again, please feel free to subscribe, as I'll be making a ton of videos for the Witch Queen, and comment down below some builds that you want to see. All right, thank you guys. I'll see you later.